Mr. President, I listened to the senator from South Dakota, my friend, and I think he has fairly set out the Republican agenda. Take the Trump tax cuts, the cuts that appeared during the Trump administration for the wealthiest people in America, and make them permanent. That's his idea of an economic boost that America needs. It's not mine. My idea is to try to address the challenges which working families in America face today, the challenges which many people in America of limited means face today. I think that the tax code should be written with those people in mind, not with the wealthiest people in mind, which the Republicans did when we pushed through the Trump tax cuts with the opposition of Democrats. So what are we proposing that was characterized yesterday by the Republican minority leader as socialistic? Well, what we're proposing is trying to bring some fairness when it comes to prescription drug pricing. Ask Americans about the cost of living. They'll certainly talk to you about gasoline and food and prescription drugs, particularly our seniors. It was ironic yesterday that after the senator from Kentucky on the Republican side called cutting prescription drug pricing socialistic, just a few minutes later, the senior senator, Republican senator from Iowa, took the floor and endorsed the very same policy. He said he was in favor of cutting prescription drug pricing for senior citizens. The two of them obviously are not talking with one another, or certainly not agreeing on the basic issue. Here's what we think. We believe the pharmaceutical industry in America is a great industry and very profitable. We believe that they're spending more money to increase their profits, not as much on research as they are on marketing. And what do I mean? Turn on a television station and try to avoid an ad for a drug. They're on constantly. And really, they spend a lot of money, the industry does, on those ads. More money than they spend on actual research for new drugs. What are they trying to do? They're trying to convince the American consumers to ask for certain drugs when they go to the doctor. So they got to work overtime to try to get us to the point where we can spell Xarelto and write it down on a piece of paper and go to a doctor and ask for it. And people do, and it works. And the money they spend in advertising works. There are only 2 countries on earth that allow television advertising for pharmaceutical drugs: the United States and New Zealand. Most every other country says those decisions should be made by medical professionals. Consumers can't know the whole story, can't know the medical aspects, every aspect of a drug. It is best to leave to the professionals. But the American pharmaceutical industry sees it another way. If they can educate, inform, and motivate American consumers to ask for drugs, many doctors will prescribe them without a battle, and the cost of health care goes up. Blue Cross Blue Shield, based in Chicago, Illinois, told me that the push behind increases in health insurance premiums for families across America is the cost of prescription drugs. They are so expensive. And so we're trying to, on the Democratic side, come up with a plan that reduces the cost of prescription drugs for Americans and American families, particularly for senior citizens. It's long overdue. Senior citizens who can't afford their prescriptions don't fill them or take half a dose when they should take a full dose for their good health in the future. We want to reach the point where these pharmaceuticals and prescription drugs are affordable. Right now we have what I consider to be a fair deal between the Veterans Administration and the pharma companies. They negotiate the prices of these drugs so that our veterans get the benefit of that negotiation. Incidentally, the pharmaceutical companies also have to negotiate with governments in other countries. Canada, selling exactly the same drugs made in the same place in the United States, charges a fraction for most drugs over what's charged to the American consumers. What's the difference? The difference is the Canadian government said, we're not going to let you exploit our customers in Canada. So they keep the cost of American drugs lower than what we pay in the United States. There's no fairness there. If we were going to have negotiation to bring pharmaceuticals down to an affordable level in Canada, we should do it in the United States. The bill being pushed by the Democrats and opposed by the Republicans would do several things. It would say that Medicare can negotiate prices for drugs. That will help senior citizens, and it will save our Treasury money. It also says that we're going to limit the amount of out-of-pocket expenditures that seniors will face under Medicare to $2,000 a year. That's a real break for a lot of people who are struggling to make ends meet among our senior citizens. We also say that if the pharmaceutical companies dramatically increase the price of drugs, they will be subject to a penalty. There are conditions for that, but we're trying to say to them, you can make a profit, but don't try to capitalize on that profit every single year by raising the cost of drugs. What we're talking about are actual family concerns for the affordability of life-saving drugs. The Democrats are for it, the Republicans oppose it. They have said it's socialism, it's trying to make a buck, or whatever they want to characterize it, I don't know. They ought to sit down and talk to some of these families. In fact, they ought to talk among themselves. When a Republican senator took the floor yesterday and agreed with our position on pharmaceuticals. So I would say to the senator from South Dakota, he can continue his campaign for the Republican dream of making tax cuts for the wealthiest people permanent. I want to be part of the Democratic aspiration to make life more affordable, particularly for seniors and those who need affordable drugs.